Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Janie Santoy has been an educator for 20 years and on a spiritual path for over 10. She believes that life's a journey that requires ongoing and continuous learning and self-improvement. She admits that she started, shifted, pivoted, all in hopes that by experimenting, she would find what she was seeking. This led her to coaching, energy healing and clearing, as well as EFT. She knew there was more, so she learned about different types of divination, got training in shamanic churning and healing, and found herself working with the Akashic Records. She's developed a unique method of working with clients that involves leading them through transformation in different dimensions. Janie believes that deep transformation and manifestation happens when we interconnect the fifth, fourth, and third dimensional realities and confidently make decisions to create a life that brings you joy. Let's welcome Janie to the show. Hi, I'm Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show, where we co-create powerful, conscious conversations on the leading edge. Today I have Janie joining us. Actually, she's a return guest, and I'm really excited about that. But today she's going to be talking about merging spiritual tools with magical technology to create a soul-aligned business and life. Welcome back, Janie.
Glad to be back and to be talking about something new and exciting. I love talking about tools.
Yes. Yeah, because one of the things you do is you work with Akashic Records. And so this has been kind of like this new progression of the work that you've been doing is really looking at how we can bring the kind of like the magical world of the 5D world into 3D. And so not only does this work for business, but this works in all aspects of our life. So yeah. And I can't wait because you have a magical exercise for us to do towards the later part of the show. But so let's start from the beginning. Like, what the heck is this spiritual techpreneur stuff? What is spiritual technology?
Well, I think it's exactly what you just described. So it's really looking at how we can embody spirit, and using the different tools to bring spirit into embodiment. So to bring it into 3D. And so through all the work that I've been doing with the Akashic Records and then really learning, meditation and mindfulness. And then most recently, I've really been working with magical technologies that, so what I've done is I really integrated the entire process. So part of the understanding is that as a 3D being, we are seeking to become spiritual, right? Or to connect with spirit. So we're moving up to 5D, from 3D to 5D. But we also have to understand that we are spirit. And so spirit is seeking to have an embodied experience in 3D. So as we, in kind of this physical dimension, are striving to move up to 5D, then our spirit is also striving to become physical. And because it's through physicality that our spirit experiences things, and has this embodied experience. And so both are happening at the same time. So what I really wanted to do was, because I'm I come to spirituality kind of from a science background. So I'm very interested in how do things work, tell me the steps, I want to understand it logically. And as you know, with a lot of spirituality and mindfulness, you don't really understand it logically, right? It's really hard to get to that stage really understanding how things work. And some people say, well, you don't have to understand how things work. And that's true. You don't have to understand. But there's some of us that want to understand. It's fun for us to think about and to dissect and deconstruct how things work, because it's in knowing that strategy and knowing the technique and knowing the why behind some things that we can actually improve upon it, because we can learn a technique from a teacher, but we're slightly different, right? We're a different spirit embodying a different body. And so our experience is going to be a little bit different. And so if we understand kind of the theory behind the different tools, then you can mix and match and you can play to see what works better for you. And so that's what I'm seeking to do, is really present tools as different pieces that then you can rearrange and you can use. So it's when you understand how to use them that then you can play with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I've had a chance to work with you as you've developed this process, and it's been really, really fascinating, because, like you said, there's all this stuff that we can tap into in the 5D, right? But we really have to bring it down through the different dimensions into this physical reality, so
Mm-hmm.
to actually manifest stuff. So can you quickly just give us a quick couple sentences and describe what are the aspects of like 3D, 4D, 5D, just so we kind of
Okay, but a couple of sentences is two, and those are three. So you have to give me more than a couple.
okay.
Uh, and especially because I think they're difficult to conceptualize at the beginning, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we can think of 3D as our body, anything that's a physical world, and then we can think of 4D as anything that's in the mental realm. So so we have the spiritual teaching that that thoughts create things, right? So we have that, and we understand that, and most of us believe that, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
but a thought is not physical, right? So it's something that it's something that affects our physicality, but it's not physical. So 4D would be that kind of non-physical, the mental realm. That's where thought forms exist. That's where programs are. So there's a lot of stuff that is at the mental realm that really get in our way. So when we think of our body has this energy body, right? And so in the energy body, there's the energy and the mental body. So then that 4D is kind of that connection. That's that bridge between our physical body and our emotions as well, kind of also are kind of in between, right? Where the physical, because we feel our emotions in our body. But they're a lot of times connected to our thoughts. So something that we think then causes emotion, right? Or the other way around. Sometimes we get the feeling first and then we try to deconstruct what it is. So that's the mental realm. And then the 5 dimension is spirit. So the Akashic records are at the 5th dimension. So the 5th dimension, there's no time. So time exists in the 4th dimension, right? And we feel time in an embodied way, because whenever we do something, then we know that there's right now and there's a later. And when we move our hand, then we know that it's, even though it's a millisecond, there's still that sense of time. But in the 5th dimension, time doesn't exist. So everything, all possibility and potentiality and probability exists in the 5 dimension. And so it's really understanding the different tools at each of the dimensions and knowing, well, how do they work? And when do I use them? When is it best to use this tool versus this tool? Because if you try to use a tool that's more for the 4th dimension in the 3rd dimension, it doesn't really work. And that's why a lot of people feel like they don't get results, because they're really putting a different expectation on the tool, because they're, we tend to think of everything as 3D when it isn't.
So
So that was a lot more than two sentences. Sorry.
Oh no, that was perfect though. So can you give us an example of what that would look like when you were talking about we're trying to use a tool in what 4D that is 3D, or did you say the other way around? I can't remember.
Well, yeah. So it's
Well,
Either way, either way would work. And so what we want to think about is how the tools connect us. So we're going to be talking about sigils later on, and so that's going to be the activity that we focus on. And so one of the things that sigils do is sigil. You start with a thought. What do I want to what I want to create, right? But then you have to, part of creating the sigil is bringing it into the third dimension. So you have to draw it out, like you have to physically create something. In you A lot of us draw it out, but they can be danced. So you want to do something in the physical realm that to bring this idea from fourth dimension down into third dimension. So a sigil sort of is a combination of the two, where you starting with the fourth dimension and then bringing it down to the third dimension. Something I think that people misunderstand is meditation. So meditation is really about controlling our thoughts, right? And so when people are starting with meditation, they get really, what's the word, impatient with not getting results. It's like, no, I don't like to meditate because I can't, it's like these thoughts keep getting in my way. Well, that's the point. The point of meditation is that we notice when we're becoming kind of controlled by our thoughts versus us controlling our thoughts, right? So it's becoming much more mindful. And so mindful, think of fourth dimension, right? So I think of meditation really is a fourth dimensional tool because it's helping us to control our thoughts. And so when we are expecting results, we're expecting something in the body. Well, the body's going to feel very uncomfortable in the meditative practice when you first get started because you're expecting relaxation to happen automatically, right? And that doesn't happen. There's some practices that make that easier to happen, like mindfulness and relaxing and tensing the muscles and then relaxing them. So there's certain things that help with that. But ultimately, the purpose of meditation is for us to control our thoughts, because our thoughts are one of the primary reasons why we have a lot of anxiety and stress, because we worry about things that really haven't happened yet, right? And so it's in being able to control those thoughts, or when is the thought mine versus when is it someone else's, And so when you meditate, then you're able to distinguish, because you know what your thought feels like versus somebody else's thought feels like. So I think of meditation as one of those tools that is really, if you try to think of it as a body thing, then you really get really impatient, and a lot of people quit meditating or their meditation practice because they think they're not getting anywhere, and really they are. And that's part of the process of learning to meditate and using as a tool, is understanding that what you want to do is use it so that you can more control your thoughts, and so that you can kind of exist within your thoughts and kind of maneuver around them and kind of see them passing by, where you don't engage the thought. You kind of notice it without judgment, and then you just let it go, and the more you're able to do that, then the more you're able to transform your life. I think that's one of the primary tools that a lot of people in their whole transformation journey start with. And I think it's a really powerful one, but it's difficult. I mean, it's not easy necessarily if you expect it to be a certain way, but if you think, well, meditation is about controlling my thoughts, and here I can't control them, and, I'm going down this rabbit hole, then, well, that's a purpose, right? Okay, now notice that and come back, right? And so I think for me, understanding that point was critical in giving myself permission to develop the practice as I needed to develop it, right? And that my experience wasn't going to be exactly somebody else's experience. And so that was instrumental for me in being able to continue my meditation practice, despite the fact that I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere. But in fact, I was. I just wanted it to go faster. I just wanted the process to be like when you when you go to the gym and if you go to the gym and you're working out every day, you kind of see results in 30 days. I mean, you start seeing your body, more firm, you start seeing muscles develop, where for meditation, it may take a little bit longer than that. Yeah.
Yeah. But but as you're talking, and how I love how you differentiated between the third, the fourth, and the fifth dimensions, and you stated it so clearly. And now I can see how that fourth dimension, the mental piece, how important it is to really work with that, because it's like it's the bridge between all of this, the like you said, the unlimited potential, all of the things that we can have or are already having in other dimensions, right?
Hmm.
But we don't have yet here. It's like no wonder why so many people struggle with manifesting all of that amazing stuff into the physical reality. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that exists in the fourth dimension. So it could be your belief systems, that don't support what you want, other people's belief systems, so cultural programming and stuff like that. There could be spells or curses, also that really are very powerful thought forms that affect our energy bodies and kind of get captured there. And so then we have to work through all of those things. It's all that kind of energetic gunk that we have in our energy field. But I think also it also creates a lot of holes in our energy system. So we have a lot of leaks through those thought forms or through those belief systems that help us or that keep us from manifesting what we want.
Hmm. Yeah. So, can you explain what is the difference between tech and magic? Because all this stuff that we're talking about seems quite magical.
Well, I think magic is tech, so, but a lot of people are,
Because when I think of tech, I'm thinking of my computer and technology and that kind of stuff. I'm not necessarily thinking of the 5D tech. So,
yeah, yeah. Well, I think a lot of times because we do work with technology like a computer, we think of technology as a computer. But really, for me, technology is anything that allows us to do things better and faster, more efficient, to live a better life. So, for example, a shoe is a technology, right? It allows you to walk on concrete without getting burned, your feet burned, right? So a brush is a technology. So any tool basically is a technology, and so I think a lot of times, especially in our culture, the whole concept of magic is in the shadows, right? It's diminished, right? The importance of it, or how we can use it really to better ourselves, and for a lot of time, meditation was considered like way out there, stuff that only
yeah,
weird people did,
the
right? And so
granola
now,
people. Yeah.
yeah, and so now it's coming into, I mean, it's mainstream, and it's not as mainstream as it could be, but it's more and more, and it's backed by scientific studies and on and on and on, right? But it's a technology, and so I like to think of all of these tools as technologies to demystify them, really to bring them into our normal existence and things that we can use. And I think it's a lot of times we don't think of how something can be useful um, because we don't understand it. So a lot of times, for example, if you take a pill, for a headache. Well, that pill came from herbs,
Hmm.
and herbs, we a lot of times when people use herbs for healing or there's like, oh, witchcraft, or well, but where do you think your aspirin came from,
Right.
and so there's I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about what these tools are and why we use them. But for me, magic. So most of the tools are magical in a sense, but a lot of times our tools have become so commonplace that we really don't think about them, right? But that's why I say it's spiritual technologies, and so that's my kind of rephrasing of magical tools.
I love that. And I never considered that shoes would, or a hairbrush would be our tech, our technology. But it
Yeah.
does make sense. And yeah, totally makes sense. So we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I want to go deeper into the specific tools. So we'll be back. Are you an Awakened Goddess Show insider? Each and every month, our members receive lots of fantastic perks, including behind-the-scenes conversations from the show, outrageously fun virtual happy hours, Angela Unscripted, where I shoot candid videos of me living the everyday goddess life, bonus meditations, powerful activations, and healing energy work with the guests, exclusive gifts and private readings, on-demand access to the show, plus an invite to join our private community. Visit our website today at theawakenedgoddess.com for more information. Now back to the show. Okay, let's dive into these 3D, 4D, and 5D tools. I want to, just lay it on me, Janie. I want to know, let's break it down so we all can start playing with these tools. So, which do you want to start with? Do you want to start with 3D or should we start with 5D? Your choice.
Well, yeah, let's start with 3D, because I think that those are the more tangible ones, and so most of the 3D tools, what we do is we want to use them to really tap into our unconscious, right? So our unconscious is like the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension. And so, but if you think about how your unconscious works through metaphor, it works through dreams, right? It works through like flashes of insight. So there's no logic kind of behind the unconscious, right? And so the way that our body translates those are through our senses, right? So we see things, and that kind of activates our reticular system, in our brain, where we see things and our, we see connections, right? And we think of them as synchronicities, or we smell something, right? Or we feel something. So these are impulses, the information that are kind of translated through our body. So when we think of a tool allows us to make that connection, right? So when we, let's say when you work with cinnamon, it's like, well, what the cinnamon, an herb would be a tool. Well, what do we, if you just think of just culturally, what do we connect cinnamon with? What are the meanings behind it? If you taste it, what do you feel in your body when you taste cinnamon? Of course, this is not like if you're allergic to it or anything like that, right? If you're just a regular person. So,
well,
for
it's
me,
it's like homey, and you think of dessert or cookies or oatmeal, or it's like that warm, cozy feeling.
Yeah. And so you can do that with any of the different herbs, right? So there are some herbs that carry cultural significance. And so even if we're not consciously aware of them, they do have this cultural significance, like a rose, and the smell of a rose. So there's a lot of meaning embedded in that, right? So if you're doing some magic, let's say, and you bring in rose oil, right? Or if you have a cream and it has the scent of rose, that's going to conjure up a lot of meaning and a lot of feeling that is not conscious, and so then it's really using that then as a tool to create an embodied sensation that then you can use that kind of that power for something else, right? To move into the fourth dimension and then the fifth dimension. So that's it. A great segue to move to the fourth dimension, right?
Okay, well, wait, hold on. I want to back up. Okay, so when we work with essential oils, we're working at the third dimension. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Okay.
Well, and I think there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff that's encoded into plants that we really don't understand. So there's more information in the plants that is stuff that affects us physically, but there's also information in the oil, so if you like people who work with oils, and I'm not going to do this justice, but people who work with oil will say that each one, you can test the vibration of the oil, right? And that
Sure.
different oils have different levels of vibration. Well, that's more information. But do we know that consciously? No. But we can resonate with that vibration. And depending what our body needs, or what we need at the time, and we may not even know what we need. And that's why you can like muscle test to see which oils are the ones that you need today, right? Or which one would be better than another one, or which combination of oils would work. Because there's that encoded information in the oil that we don't have to know logically, but if we muscle test, our body knows, and if you know how to muscle test, then you can use that information. So that's a great example of combining two tools, right? The oil would be a tool, and then muscle testing is another tool.
Okay. All right. So then I'm guessing sound, like maybe
Mhm.
drumming or
Yep.
listening to music. That's another 3D tool?
Yes, and then again, sound and even our voice, right, carries vibration, and so we can be saying something and be saying it in a really mean tone or really angry tone, and of course the word, it's not the word that we're saying, but it's the vibration of the tone that we're saying that's going to carry that meaning. And so certainly sound is another one, that because we experience sound through our senses, so anything that's 3D would be stuff that we experience through our bodies.
Hmm. Okay. So then what are a couple others? You were talking about the senses, and I was trying to like go through the different senses and think of, what would the other ones be? Um, so
For
help me
tools.
out. Yes, for
Well,
tools.
a lot of people, when we talk about like, and that when a lot of people consider themselves empaths, and they say,
Mm.
well, and then they need to learn how to separate like what's theirs and what's and empaths, what they do is they feel in their bodies, right? So a lot of empaths are like, I'm not intuitive. And I'm like, yes, you are, right? You're feeling it in your body. That's what an empath is. You're getting your information through your body. And so then I think the difficult thing for empaths is to learn to decode that, right? Because it's so natural. They've been doing that all their lives that it doesn't feel like it's something new. And a lot of times when you're trying to learn a tool, you think that it's something outside of yourself, and but a lot of times it's really understanding and having the technology to allow you to understand yourself, right? So because a lot of times when so for example, if you drumming, like some people will resonate with drumming and some people hate it, it's more the bells or the bowls, that they resonate with more. And so those are tools that just help us come really to understand the own vibrations in our bodies, and that's information that then we need to decode. And so everyone is a little bit different. Some people really like sound, other people really like essential oils, which are more the smells. And so I think there are some of the and you work with the envision experience, right? The envision experience is about creating the images, right? So you created them in the fourth dimension, right? And then you want to bring them out into the 3D world and you create a movie, right? So a movie is not necessarily physical, but more physical than the pictures in your mind, right?
Mhm.
Um, so so that would be another tool than one you're familiar with.
Right, right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about like, so I imagine that things like crystals and feathers, um, sage, things like that are also then 3D tools.
Right.
Anything
So
that we can touch, it sounds
right.
like.
Yeah, anything that we can touch or that activates our senses so that we can connect with that we connect with our unconscious. So all of
Okay.
those would be 3D. Yep.
Fun. Ooh, fun, fun, fun. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we can move to 4D. I feel satiated now. We can move to 4D. So meditation, you talked about that. So what are
Right.
some other 4D tools?
Well, a lot of 4D tools are what we call clearing tools. So any tool that allows you to clear emotional blocks or clear belief systems. So all of those are also different technologies for the purpose of connecting to the fourth dimension. So connecting to that kind of mental realm and then clearing the information that's there. So in the mental realm, really most of what is needed is awareness and intention, right? And so if you have awareness and then you have the intention to clear, then you can clear. The issue is then bringing it down to 3D, right? Because it really has long-term impact in our lives if we are able to bring it and manifest it into our embodied world, right? And so that takes action. So if you clear something in 3D, but then you take the same action, while you're doing is, if you clear something in 4D and then you take action and you take the same old action, that action is just recreating and you're putting that thing back in there. So a lot of times we think of like patterns, right? That it's really hard to break a pattern. So we can work with somebody to clear it, and then we're okay for a little while, and then we go back into our patterns, and then we're back to it, right? And so, but most of any clearing practice that you have, I would consider fourth dimension. So anything that works with thought forms, also like journeying. I think journeying can also be, if you are a shamanic practitioner, journeying would be a fourth dimensional tool, because again, you go inward, right? You go inward and you have this internal experience. It's in the in shamanism, we call that in non-ordinary reality, right? And so that is basically the fourth dimension, is a reality that we can't, it's not like in 3D, we can't really physically put our hands on it, right? Or we experience it in our bodies because we're having this kind of mental journey. And a lot of shamanic practitioners also use their bodies, so they do dance, and they use the physical tools like rattles and so on when they journey. So they do a combination, kind of a 4D mental journey plus the physical, the 3D objects. And I think it's when you start combining them that things become more powerful. So then let's talk about 5D, right? So
wait. Okay, so 4D. Then so things like guided visualization would be
yes,
another 4D tool.
right.
What about like affirmation meditations, things like that?
Well, if you're thinking them, because if you're saying them, then they could be 3D, right? Because if you're bringing them down and then vocalizing, so that would be like a combo of if you're just reading them, then I think that's more, and thinking them, then that's more 4D. But as soon as you vocalize, then you're starting to use your body. So then that would be kind of a combo.
Okay. So that's not a bad thing. That actually helps integrate, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I love how you were talking about that you do need to and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but bringing it down through each level, and I'm starting to put the pieces of what that actually looks like. So and I love how with the affirmations you're talking about, you can speak them out loud, and then that'll bring it to 3D, because I understand we have cellular memory for like when we have these limiting beliefs or ancestral patterns. We have this stuff in our body that, as you said, we can release it, but then we need to also embody it. So we have to shift at that level. So
Right. Yeah.
those
Well,
are
and you need to create these new energies, right? So there's these older energies that are encoded in your cells, and then you need to create new ones. So part of that shifting process is creating this new energy. And so really that it's really hard to create new energy just through the fourth dimension, like, because you can be thinking things in the fourth dimension and they can stay in the fourth dimension for a long time, and they don't become embodied until you take action, right? So you can have an idea, but an idea on its own isn't really going to go very far. Like, you need to do something to spread that idea, right? So
sure. You need to like
for
anchor
example,
it.
Right. So, for example, I had this idea of sharing this information, and so 4D is information, right? Of sharing this information with more people, so that they can become empowered to use these tools in these ways. But that's an idea that's not going anywhere unless I do something about it, right? And so that's why I'm starting my Facebook Live show on my Facebook page, that's going to be doing that. It's sort of taking a different tool and talking about the different ways, what the tool is, how it helps, and then the different ways that it can be used. And
Nice.
of course, I'm not an expert in all tools, so I will be asking people to help me explain what some of the, because different people have, that's their passion, is that one tool, and they know it inside and out, much deeper than I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. I can't wait to watch those. Okay,
Yeah.
so now let's move to 5D. Let's play in the ethers.
Yeah. So 5D is really spirit, so Akashic records, when you're talking, if you go and get information from your guides. So all of that is really 5D, right? And so that's where we can connect to past lives. We can bring gifts from past lives into our awareness. So working with the Akashic records, when you're intuitive, when you work with the angels, like all of that to me is 5D, so and it's really outside of time. You can think of working in the kind of, some people think of it as working in the quantum field, or um, and then again in shamanic practice, when you go to non-ordinary reality and you work with the guides, right? And the guides, or the spirit guides do, or your animal guides, or your animal helpers, however you term it, then they work with you. So a lot of the healing work can be done in the fourth and the fifth dimension. But then again, you need to embody that, right? So it's you can do the healing, but then it needs to be embodied, and then you need to act and do things in a new way. Because if you continue doing things in the old way, then you a lot of times all you're doing is recreating what you've cleared, and so then you need to come back and clear it again, and so that's why Reiki practitioners have a lot of business, right? Because they help somebody clear those energies from their energy bodies, but then people don't choose differently. They continue eating the same way. They continue with the same relationships if they're toxic, and so on. And so all of those are going to come back and recreate that toxicity in the energy body, which would then need to be cleared again. So I think it's important to be able to recognize where all the different levels and what you can do with them, but know that it's really working with them all in conjunction, kind of all together, right? That if you only do, and you can get results by working in one dimension more than others. But I think if you learn to work in all of them, then you become a much more powerful manifester, and then it comes faster, which is what we want, because we're impatient.
Yes. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
not even that. It's just fun to play and see
Yeah.
just how powerful we are. Because it is true that we can have anything we want, but we just have to learn how to tap into the field and bring it down to 3D. And as
Right.
you were talking, I was getting excited because I realized that the envisioning process does take someone from 5D into 3D, like each step, because we're getting into that what is the big vision, what are the big goals that someone wants to achieve, and what is this ideal life that they want. And then they have to communicate it out loud and create this whole story, this image, paint the picture. And then through that process, they're embodying it because they're feeling it in their
Right.
body. Yeah. And then they've got a movie. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and the movie helps them to recreate that, right? So to continue to feel that experience, and then the more they feel that experience, and the more they're calling it and becoming resonant to that experience out in 3D. And I think another thing to mention is that in the fifth dimension, so we are spirit, and so spirit is wanting to experience itself in a specific way, and that's why we become embodied. So I think one of the biggest reasons why a lot of times manifestation doesn't work is because we want something that our spirit doesn't really want. And then you have to ask yourself, well, why do I really want that? Is it because I've been culturally programmed to want that, you know. And so then it's something that you need to clear in the fourth dimension, right, from your energy bodies, and to really tap into what does your spirit want to experience. And so the work that I do with the Akashic Records is really go in so that you can become really clear about who you are at that soul level. Because then once you know, then you can say, yes, this aligns. No, this doesn't align, right? And then you can be more honest kind of with yourself, you know, and say, yeah, I guess I didn't really want that. You know, everybody else wants that and they want that for me. And I thought it was shiny, you know, and interesting. So I thought I wanted it. But then, you know, it turns out that that's not what you wanted at all. Right. Or that your soul wants a particular experience, and it can come in a myriad of ways, right? It doesn't need to come in this one specific way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're referring to your seven sacred soul qualities. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, well, and the soul
Yeah.
gifts. So there's a lot of information that can be retrieved from the Akashic Records, and part of that is who you are at soul origination. So that means who your soul wants to, you know, who the kind of the unadulterated part of qualities of your soul. And so if you align to those, then you will more easily manifest. Because if you're trying to get something that your soul is really in conflict with what your soul wants, then it's really hard to manifest.
Yes.
Or, you know, and then sometimes we are strong manifestors, so sometimes we do and we're still not happy. We're like, wait, I thought I wanted that, you know, and you know, it's not the full experience, you know. So there's still it wasn't exactly, even though we got it, it wasn't exactly what we wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like we don't know whether we truly want something until we step into it. Yeah. Yeah. So I had an opportunity to go through the process with you for the soul gifts and the seven sacred soul qualities. And yeah, and we actually talked about that on the last episode. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely go check that out. And I can tell you that it's like been one of the most powerful tools that I've used, and I've used a lot of tools. And being able to see, you know, for me, my primary soul gift is divine love, my secondary is divine wisdom, and clearly with the show I'm able to combine those. And then the seven sacred soul qualities, we talk about it on the other episode, so I'm not going to go into it now, but wow, it's just like gives you so much insight, and really gave me I was able to give myself permission to just be like, go with my natural flow. And so it was really, really powerful. And it's like I can deepen my understanding of what each of those mean to me and how I can be in more alignment. And so it's definitely shifted how I've done my business. So I do thank you for that, Janie.
You're welcome. Well,
Yeah.
and I think those are some of the 5D tools, you know, so having that information from the Akashic Records, or being able to go and read your own Akashic Records, you know, to find out if something is in alignment or is not in alignment, then that's a powerful tool to have. You know, and so you can either learn to do it yourself, you know, or you can work with a practitioner to help you to kind of bring that information. Because once you have those pieces of the puzzle, then you can apply them like for the rest of your life, right? And you can become much more specific as to how you apply them, and when they work, and what works and what doesn't work, and why something feels good, why something doesn't feel good, you know, and versus it being just trial and error, right? That you have this piece of information, or these pieces of information that allow you to kind of navigate your 3D experience in a very different way. And I think the important thing is that it allows you to navigate in a way that's very intentional, so that you are clear about what you're doing and why you're doing it, versus, you know, you're just kind of navigating and having, you know,
haphazard.
yeah, and being like thrown around. That's kind of how I feel, you know, that it's like, and of course, you know, experience isn't going to be 100% perfect, but the more that you apply the more that you integrate the information, and it just becomes second nature. It's something that you continue to do. So if you go and get an Akashic Records reading and then you don't know what to do with it, well, what's the use of that, right? And so I'm very practical. And so you can see that all of this information about the spiritual tech, and that's why, because it's practical. It's how can you use these tools in a very practical way to really achieve that transformation, right? And to really live a life where we feel connected and we feel aligned. And what are all of the goddess qualities?
Oh, connected, aligned, limitless, rich, magnetic, and unapologetic.
Yes. So all of those things. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, so let's take another quick break, and then we come back. I want to jump into sigils because those are so much fun. Have you created vision boards, listened to meditations, and read books on how the law of attraction works, yet you're still not where you want to be? The key to manifesting is focusing your attention on your big dreams consistently, fully embodying the feeling as if it's already happening. And that's why I created the Envision Experience, a revolutionary and simple 28-day process for powerful, quantum-level dream manifesting. You can find out more at theawakenedgoddess.com/envision-experience. All right, so I'm excited to dive into sigils because you actually introduced this tool to me recently, and I've been playing with it and been having a lot of fun, and it's like really, really powerful. So I want to have you share this with the audience so they can play too. So
okay,
take it away.
So we're going to take it step by step, so that and you can find a lot of information also online. So this is a tool that is not a new tool, right? It's not a new technology, but I want more people to use it. I want to share as much of it so that then you can bring it into your own practice. So what you do basically is you write out on a piece of paper, you write out something that you want to bring in, or you can also write something that you want to release. So it can be either way. And so the paper, again, remember this is, and when you're creating a sigil, what you're doing is you're writing and you're bringing, you're creating a physical kind of object on paper. So the paper may matter to you. It may not matter to you. If you're the person who loves stationery and you go out and you feel the paper and you buy a journal and the first thing you do is feel the paper to see how thick it is, maybe the paper is going to matter to you because that's going to be part of your experience, is really participating in that process of creation. And co-creation with the paper, right? Because the paper itself is part of the creation process. But if you don't care, you're like, it can just be a piece of paper that's a lined paper,
I'm going to use my journal.
Yeah, it can be a napkin. What matters is that you have something where you can go through this process. And then what you're going to do is you're going to write out. So this has several steps. So you're going to write out your whatever you want to call in. So what you want to manifest, and it can be and think of, if you're writing an affirmation, like all the rules about affirmations. You can use all of them. If you're really committed to them. But it could just be, let's say, I wanted 5 new clients for the month, right? So then I could write that 5 new clients in July.
Okay, so we don't have to say I want. We just write just specifically, like I want a MacBook Pro, like new computer. And I just write MacBook Pro.
Mm-hmm. And remember that you wouldn't want to put I want, you want to put I have a MacBook Pro. Right. So some of the rules that remember that this is language, right? So language matters, and language is one of our technologies, right? And so we need to use the technology to our benefit. So of course, if you write want, then the want could appear and your desire is going to be there. And you don't want the desire. What you want is the object, right? Or whatever it is that you want to manifest. So just keep that in mind. So and what we want to do is we want to simplify the whatever you've written. So whatever line you have, you are going to, there's several methods of doing this, but basically the whole idea is simplification, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can take off all the vowels, and so cross off all the vowels, and then you can cross off all repeated consonants. So if you go through the string of letters, let's say, and you have an M twice,
Mm-hmm.
you can just cross one of them out. So you just need one M. And so at the end, you come up with just a string of consonants. And these can be in capital letters or they can be lowercase. Like it doesn't really, whatever, however you write is fine. Like it doesn't have to be one way or another.
Okay, so for example, there's mine. So I said, I have a brand new MacBook Pro. And so then I crossed out all the consonants or the double consonants and vowels. And so I have these consonants left.
Right, right.
And clarification, you leave in Y. Is that correct?
You can, yeah.
Okay.
If for you the Y is a vowel, then you can remove it.
Okay.
I can remember this is working with your unconscious, and really, it's not the letters themselves, but it's the meaning that we are encoding into what we create based on what we want, right? So as you're going through this process, you're really, and what you want to be thinking of as you're going through this is you want to be thinking of you using your new MacBook Pro. You want to think of unboxing it. You want to think of how great it'll be to record a new video and not have to worry about how much memory there is. You know,
Right.
so you want to embody the feeling of having this already, right? Of this having manifested already as you're going through the creating the sigil. And so once you have your string of letters, what you're going to do is you're going to put the string of letters in a way that it becomes a symbol. So you can overlap them, you can turn them around and kind of link them. You can you like if you have a so if you have a P and a K, you can overlap them. Yes. And so what you want to do as much as possible is work through the image that you're creating until it feels complete, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when does it feel complete? Well, it depends on you, you know, as it, you want it to feel, you want to have a sense of completeness. You want to have a sense of resonance. What some people do when they're creating the sigil is like for you, if it's a MacBook Pro, maybe you would arrange them in a way that it kind of looks like a computer, you know, or if you want a trip to the beach, then you can arrange them so it looks like a palm tree, you know, or if you want, so there's different ways that you could create your the image. But basically what you're doing is, and notice what we're doing with this tool is we're taking a statement, a desire that we have, we're putting it in language, right? So we're bringing it from 4D to 3D. So we're putting it into writing. And then we're manipulating it so that it's no longer logic, right? So now it's a visual image that is connecting with our unconscious, right? And
Yes. So here is actually probably a better one because I think the lines are going to mess up the view.
Yeah.
But this is a sigil that I created, and this is for my new Patreon membership program. So that is for, gold members.
Yeah.
And I like that one. I think it's really pretty how so when we can rewrite it over and over and it's not going to lose the intention or the power. That's not going to harm it in any way.
Well, you can think of logos, like company logos. And so company logos, they're everywhere, right? And people use them in their stationery and they have them on their website. And so they don't, and in fact, the more that they're used, the more they spread out in the world, and then their message is spread, right? So I think it depends what you want to do with the sigil. You know, it depends what your intention is with it, whether you continue using it or whether it's something that is private, let's say, and that you keep it. And then when it manifests, then you can burn the piece of paper that it's on. So I think it, like I said, it depends on the intention. It depends on what you want for what you're calling in. And again, you can create a sigil to release something. So if you are wanting to, so one that just popped into me, like if you want to lose 20 pounds, right? So it could be, you can sigilize that. Or if you want to forgive someone, then you can sigilize that, so it can be different things that you can work with. And almost always, if you want to release something, then you want to not keep it, right? So once you manifest that thing, then you want to also release the sigil because it's done its job, right?
Okay, so I created a sigil for releasing old past debt. So so I don't want to hold on to the little paper. I want to like burn it or tear it up or something.
Mm-hmm. So I would, yeah.
Okay.
So if I wanted to release something, part of it would be releasing that sigil. And so,
okay, I will burn it today.
So, yeah. And so remember that part of this is, or you could keep it until, it manifests and then you could release it. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use this and know. And I think part of it is thinking about what works for you. So like I said, if you are really connected to the type of paper, then maybe you want to buy some really nice parchment and use a fountain pen to write your sigil, to write the final sigil. And then maybe you want to keep it somewhere, so it depends. I think it's something that you can play with. And like I said, it's a tool. And so when when you start jogging, you can go buy a pair of running shoes and sometimes they don't fit right. And you need to buy another pair because they chafe here, and so this is the same type of thing with this tool is you want to experiment with it and see, when it works and when you need to shift it a little bit so that it works better for you. And I know one person in our group who is going to be dancing her sigils, because she's a dancer and because for her embodying that information and movement is powerful, but that wouldn't work for me because I don't consider myself a dancer, right? Or right. Somebody else who has who writes music, could somehow turn the sigil into like a musical piece. So there's different, remember that the key is to bring it into third dimension. How you bring it into third dimension, the easiest way is writing it. Right. But there's other ways that you can paint. Right. So you can use different types of writing utensils. Right. Or you can I know some people who go to the beach and put them on the sand, and then let the waves take them. And so there's a lot of different. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways that you can experiment. So the key is that you're bringing this information, something that you want, your intention from the fourth dimension down into the third dimension, and then you're embodying it in a way that is significant for you, and so what that is, you could, if you're really into essential oils, you could anoint your paper with essential oils, and have that be part of that either manifestation or releasing process, right? So you can combine the different tools as well. So you don't only have to only use the writing.
Wow, this was so much fun. Such a magical conversation. And wow, I just loved how we broke down each level. And I think we all have lots of tools that we can start playing with and working through and manifesting and playing with our sigils. And so thank you for sharing that with us today. And you guys, if this conversation has sparked an interest, I highly recommend that you connect with Janie to work with her because, like she said, she's very magical in what she does. So thank you, Janie, for sharing your magic with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. I hope you enjoyed today's guest and got something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at theawakenedgoddess.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.